Pay attention. Just pay attention. Just start to recognize the miraculousness of every moment and everything that shows up in your life. Even the fact that you can take a breath and that who you are is here, now, at this time, in an infinity that has no beginning and no end, is a miracle. You showed up. Pay attention. Notice the trees. Notice the clouds. Notice the worms. Notice the birds. And, as Maslow said, see the unfolding of God in everyone that you encounter. Pay attention, so it will be astonished. Just go through life being astonished. Rumi put it this way. He said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. Get rid of your intellect and just go through life bewildered. What I would like you to do is to, there's a great teacher back in the 10th century, a Sufi teacher. His name was Tilopa. He said, have a mind that's open to everything and attached to nothing. So what I'll be asking you tonight is to really have a mind that is open to things that you may never have considered before. At this age that I am at now, at 71, I find it's fascinating to look back at some of the things that have occurred in my lifetime. When they show up, when they're happening to us, or to me at least, I'm not aware that they are part of a larger tapestry, a larger picture. But when you get to a certain place, you can look back and see how this particular event led to this event, and that occurrence led to that, and this insight led to that insight. On and on it goes, that looking back insight kind of thing. And it's still happening. It's still happening for me right now. I got this new device that my kids got me. It's called an iPad. I've only had it just a few months, and I don't know how to work hardly any of it because I write all my books by hand. And I have the same editor that I've had for 37 books, since 1971. That world of computers and so on. My oldest daughter, Tracy, loves to tell me how much fun it is for her just to go to the airport for entertainment and watch people in my age group try to just get on a plane. You mean I have to stick this thing in there? And then what happens now? Nothing is working and I don't know. And invariably, I need someone to come over and help me to touch different buttons and so on. But one of the things on there is something called Facebook that I don't know anything about. I've been informed I have like 700,000 friends on Facebook. I don't even know how to get it. I said, well, how do I get Facebook? Do I just type Facebook and does it? So they tell me how to do these things, and I turned that thing on the other day and pushed the slide button, and up came something on Facebook. I don't know what it was, but I was on there, and it had my name on it and listed all my friends. It didn't list them all, and there was a notice at the top of the screen. Somebody had just said, there's a book that you have to read, Dr. Dyer. You must read this book. It's absolutely essential that you read it. What that means to me is that there's two things operating here. One is that I just turned this machine on, and it happens to go to something that I don't even know how it got on there. My kids must have been playing with it or something. So that's number one. And number two, then there's a letter to me and a book from somebody in France, a physicist who has written a book about how to change the future through time travel. The recognition that here we are. I've been reading this book all day, and I'll get off of it in a few minutes. But it's just spooked me out, because when these things happen, I just finished a book. I just spent a year on a book. I just did a public television special on it, and I recorded it. I worked on it 5-6 hours a day, every single day for 7 or 8 months. I'm not ready to write another book. But when these kinds of things happen for me, and I'm speaking to all of you, when these sorts of alignments begin to show up in your life, it's really important to pay attention to them, because you'll get to a point later on in your life, which is now, because the future and the present and the past are just all illusions. It's all now. This moment that we're all in right now was, at one time, a future in your past. And this moment that you're in right now is also a future, and this is that past. So this moment is really a future and a past, and they can't communicate with each other, the future and the past. I told you it's strange. The only way they can communicate with each other, your past and your future, is through your present. So, your past can't get a hold of your future. The only way it can get a hold of your future and help you to change it And I mean change it, and I know this to be true because what I was reading today is so aligned with what I've just completed, and what I'm going to be speaking about tonight is through your present. This whole idea that we have within us the capacity to use our present moment to alter any future that might have even been our dharma, might have been something that we signed up for, might have been a direction that we were headed. When we begin to recognize that, when we put our attention on what we would like to be, then the universe starts aligning in such a way that the kinds of things that I just described to you, turning on this iPad, which I didn't even have 2 months ago, and having a thing show up, and then having a note to me from somebody in France telling me about a French author who has written a book about how to go into time and literally change what you may have been destined for or the direction that you were headed can happen. You can do it. You can do it instantaneously. One of the most important ways that we do it is in our sleep, particularly as we prepare ourselves for sleep to enter into our subconscious mind, all of which is coming up in about an hour. But the reason I say this to you is because when this kind of thing happens, this is what I know about myself now at age 71. When things like that happen, I know that this is just the very beginning stages of my writing something and uncomplicating it, because that seems to be what my life mission has been about, which is taking complicated, difficult things for most people and putting them into terms that people understand. My teacher, when I was a young doctoral student, was Dr. Abraham Maslow. Dr. Maslow died on the 8th of June, 1970, at almost the same instant, within an hour, of the time that I was walking across the stage in Detroit at Cobo Hall to receive my PhD. My whole doctoral study work was on self-actualization and higher consciousness and how average people can achieve that. It was almost as if he had taken these concepts of self-actualization and higher awareness and talked about how there are people who are extraordinary in virtually all facets of life, and that all of us are really programmed for extraordinariness. But we have unfortunately allowed ourselves to be ordinary. He talked about these behaviors and ideals and thought patterns and things that separate and differentiate people who reach these exalted levels of consciousness, who are able to do what Jesus said in the New Testament, "Even the least among you can do all that I have done and even greater things." I've always just taken that literally. We are all capable of these miracles, but we don't often recognize that old Sanskrit saying, "When the student is ready, the teachers will appear." The problem is that the teachers are appearing all the time. They're everywhere, in everything that we do, and many times we don't even recognize who they are. Mother Teresa once said that every day I see Jesus Christ in all of his distressing disguises, so that that person begging on the street might be your greatest teacher, or even the person sitting next to you that you didn't even know before, or that you met on the way in, or whatever. There's a wonderful poet. Her name is Mary Oliver. She wrote Wild Geese, one of my all-time favorite poems. They asked her, "What is it that differentiates people from higher consciousness and the rest?" She said 3 things, 3 simple things. She said, "My advice always," and she was born the same year I was. She lives out in Cape Cod and has written many great books of poetry. You'll hear a lot of poetry tonight. I've been writing a lot of it myself. She said, "If I had to give any advice to people, it would be this. Number 1, pay attention. Just pay attention. Just start to recognize the miraculousness of every moment. Notice everything that shows up in your life. Even the fact that you can take a breath is a miracle. Recognize that who you are is here now, at this time, in an infinity that has no beginning and no end. You showed up. Pay attention. Notice the trees. Notice the clouds. Notice the worms. Notice the birds. As Maslow said, see the unfolding of God in everyone that you encounter. Pay attention. Know that this world that you're in, this physical body that you're in, is not who you are at all. Pay attention. Number 2, she said, I would tell them, be astonished. Just go through life being astonished. Rumi put it this way. He said, sell your cleverness and purchase bewilderment. Get rid of your intellect and just go through life bewildered. That's something that has happened to me in the last 6 or 8 months, particularly since I've had this diagnosis of leukemia. I know most of you know about it since ABC did a special on it with me in it. I was just sort of telling this reporter a little bit about it, and that became the whole focus. But it's been a great blessing at any rate. Miracles have been showing up in my life, some of which I'll share with you. There's no better place to do it than here. I did it on the PBS show, but it'll be interesting to see what they allow on. I told a story that they already cut. It was about how when people give you negative information that you don't want to hear, you should just put it in the trash. The wonderful thing about the iPad is that I love this thing. It has a little button on there called trash. I just think that should happen in life. I mean, I would like to have one of those so that every time somebody gives you any information that you don't want, you just push trash, and you can actually watch it go into the trash bin. It's amazing. It makes a little sound and goes right into the trash. I love that. Then there's a button at the top that says delete, and it never comes back. Every negative thing that anybody ever tells you that you don't want to hear, that conflicts with what you are and what you intend to be, just push the trash button. I could say nothing more tonight and just leave, and that would be the best lecture you ever heard.